There we go, chat is up. It is pretty late here, but I did want to do a stream, so I had planned it. So I'm only going to be watching probably the first 2 videos in this playlist that I made. For some reason, it decided to put in conversion therapy as context to this video, which is not great. So I'm just going to watch this video and probably the next one and comment on things that do not make a system fake, things that the people who make these videos get wrong, misunderstand, give false information about. Do not harass, attack, or insult anyone mentioned in these videos. That is not the purpose of the stream or the VOD. The purpose is to provide correct information and correct misinformation.
Hello, I'm Gabriel, I'm 18, and I am a boy.
Hi, I'm Alistair. I'm somewhere between 27 and 29, and I am a man.
Hi, I'm Emmy, I'm 6 or 7, and I'm a girl.
Hi, I'm Austin. I am 19 and I am non-binary.
So teenage girls self-diagnosing themselves with dissociative identity.
That did not look like a girl to me. They said what their gender identities were.
Identity disorder on TikTok is now a thing that has, let me check this to make sure, 1.3 billion views on the hashtag DID, 486 million views on the hashtag DID system hashtags. So many of these people have different alters that like identify as different ages. Serious question, how do I know how old these people actually are? I don't.
So many systems, including ours, refer to the physical age of the body as just the body age. We are bodily 24 years old. I am... How old am I? I don't know. I don't think I ever really paid attention, but I am not the same age as the body. Most of us are not.
Don't want to be told that I'm harassing minors. I'm critiquing people and their ideas. Don't want to be told I'm harassing minors though. Not about that life. What?
On TikTok, a lot of systems will put in their bio what the body age is. So they will say bodily a minor or bodily 18 plus, something like that.
Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ariel and I am the non-leftist lesbian that your woke friends told you to hate. But you know what? I'm pretty sure that if you keep those pages that I'm critiquing, this is not a breeding ground for bullying. It never has been. It never will. These videos are simply made to showcase what these people are doing and why it's wrong.
And this video, likewise, is to show the misinformation that you are spreading about people who may or may not have DID. I do not know. Nobody knows, except for the people shown and their doctors.
And how they are perpetuating stereotypes and harming people that actually have these disorders. For those of you who don't know, DID is actually strongly linked with early life and childhood psychological trauma. I'm gonna make.
So it is not strongly linked, and it is not just psychological. It is only linked with severe repeated childhood trauma before the ages of around 7 to 9. And it does not just have to be psychological, it can be physical, sexual. It also does not have to be abuse, it can be other types of trauma, such as natural disasters.
Make sure I get this right. Dissociation is a psychobiological state or trait that serves as a protection in response to said traumas. Professor Bethany Brand was quoted saying, DID is an identity disruption indicated by 2 or more distinct personality states with a discontinuity state of self. The DSM-5 states that there are 5 different types of dissociative identity disorders, but the majority of these TikTokers are
That is not different types of dissociative identity disorder, those are types of dissociative disorders. So I'm going to assume that she just misspoke there. But the only disorders where you can have alters are dissociative identity disorder, the first one here, and otherwise specified dissociative disorder, OSDD, and that is specifically with OSDD 1.
of course, are just focusing on like the easiest one, general DID. To be specific here, the main issue that people are having is with the self-diagnosis of this disorder. Once again, the people claiming to have these disorders are mostly female, young, white, usually emo looking, possibly
So I know from the statistics, it is more likely for females, femme-presenting, woman, whatever term you would like to use, AFAB, people to develop DID. And that is simply due to things like AFAB. Children are usually more likely to experience sexual abuse than AMAB children. Obviously, AMAB children can and do experience sexual abuse, but it is at a much lower rate than AFAB children.
queer and trans identifying as well. And these people are claiming that they do not need a medical diagnosis. They simply declare to have the disorder and then so be it.
I hope that she's going to show videos of people who do say that. They don't need a medical diagnosis, because I don't know if I've ever seen a video where anyone has claimed that. So I'm interested to see.
They have it.
I'd like to start off by saying that self-diagnosis is extremely valid. Not every psychologist or therapist, especially in the US, has all this information on DID.
Let me be very clear here. This is a very serious medical or mental, whatever you want to call it, condition that requires a lot of observation. Unfortunately, more serious cases of dissociative identity disorder result in hospitalizations, watching for possible suicide attempts. Many times they have to stabilize the patient to prevent any self-destructive habits.
Hello, thank you for the follow. So I'm trying to gather my thoughts. So it can be a complex thing to figure out and diagnose. Self-diagnosis is not just watching one TikTok and saying that you have it. It is months and years of research, of observing your own symptoms, of paying attention to yourself. Oftentimes, a professional diagnosis can be very inaccessible to many people, especially when it is a disorder that has such a stigma around it, such as DID. If you are not white, then you are going to have a much more difficult time getting a diagnosis, usually, because of medical racism. And if you are an AFAB person, then that can also contribute to that. As well as getting a diagnosis can be very expensive. You may not have anyone in your area that you can go to.
Would you consider it ableist to be able to use something that people cannot change about themselves, like a disability, to your advantage when it suits you, and yet throw it away the second it doesn't suit your needs, even though others actually can't pick and choose? Because that, my friends, is exactly what the fake disorder kids of TikTok have been doing, while screeching that everyone else is the problem.
Let's take a look at the facts here. The majority of actual dissociative identity disorder cases are aged 30 to 40 years old who have significant childhood trauma.
So you do always need trauma in order to develop DID. And it has to be severe and repeated. The reason that many cases of DID being diagnosed are in people who are older and middle-aged is because of the stigma, because of how difficult it can be to get a diagnosis, because of how DID presents. It's usually a very covert disorder. There are overt cases, which is just as valid, but for the most part, in most cases, it will present as very covert, meaning it is hidden. So you won't even know that you have it until something happens, until the system feels that it is safe enough to start seeking help.
And a long history of mental health issues. All dissociative identity disorders comes from severe childhood trauma, usually starting at around the age of 7. So yeah,
I would not say that it starts around the age of 7. It can start from the moment that you are born until around the ages of 7 to 9, I believe, is when most people will have their personality integrate. Once that happens, you cannot develop DID.
not the typical 15-year-old TikToker who's emo.
The culture on TikTok is so woke that they treat oppression and victimhood like currency on there. That's why you see people constantly inventing new letters in the LGBT alphabet and putting on new identities to try to spin a new way in which they're special or different or oppressed.
All right, listen. A few quick tips to not start dating someone who's faking DID. If they refuse to tell you where they're diagnosed or they can't come up with it on the top of their head, they're a liar. Don't date them. If they are under the age of 50 years old and they have full control over their switches to the point of asking which one you want to talk to, they're a liar.
Anyone else see the projection, the amount of projection in this TikTok alone? It's insane. The hypocrisy here, of course, is that these are the same people that will call out people for cultural appropriation, which, like...
So it doesn't seem like she really explains what exactly about that TikTok is wrong. Dissociative amnesia is a very big symptom. Nobody owes you their medical information or medical history. Just because some people may share it with you, just because we have shared our own diagnosis in the past and shown our own proof of our diagnosis in the past does not mean that you are entitled to all of our medical information. We share what we choose to share, that we are comfortable sharing, that we feel safe sharing. Switches are, for the most part, uncontrollable, but there are positive triggers, negative triggers. for systems that have good communication, and even just between alters that have good communication, they can plan out switches.
Stop. But of course, if you are a 17-year-old TikToker who is obsessed with being oppressed, who better to diagnose you than yourself? Using your supposed sick brain and claiming that it can come to some sort of concise diagnosis isn't making the sense you think it is. Also, notice how this is the same as being trans now. Like, all you have to do is say that you're trans, and you're trans. All you have to do is say that you have DID or a mental disorder, and you have it. And
Being trans and having a mental disorder are two very different things. One is a gender identity. One is a literal chemical, physiological reaction or disconnect or issue in the brain.
anyone who says otherwise is a bigot and doesn't have a say. I honestly wonder why it's so easy for these kids to show their supposed alters, like when dissociative identity disorder is itself a defense mechanism for projection. Listen to what this YouTuber who genuinely has DID had to say about this all.
And even then, if my alters are in a room full of strangers, because they're a defense mechanism, they're likely to continue to act like me. So it makes it practically impossible for others to tell that anything is different or untoward.
So that is Multiplicity Me, and I believe that they have achieved final fusion, which very happy for them. We did watch that video from them, and they seemed much more happy and much more healthy. They are speaking about non-online. They are speaking about in a room full of people where they don't know the situation, they may not know everyone in the room. Obviously, alters are more likely to mask as the host or the default, I've heard some systems calling it. Online is a lot different because we can choose to edit things out. We can choose what to say, what to show. Online, for a lot of systems, helps alters to be able to unmask.
For example, could you say 100% that you're talking to Jess right now? Or is it just another alter pretending to be me? Mystery.
The other big flag is that the majority of these girls that are claiming to have dissociative identity disorder are claiming that their alters are fictional characters, usually the same popular.
So fictives are a very real type of alter in DID, as well as factives. So when you are a child, you will often connect to different TV shows, maybe books, different types of media. And if you are going through a trauma, then you are going to attach to that media for an escape, for comfort. That is how fictives can form, and once a fictive forms when you are a child, fictives can form throughout your entire life for the same reason. Especially if you are going through some type of trauma, you are going to find things to attach to escape, to bring you comfort, and that is how fictives can form.
Character within their friend group, cartoon characters, video game characters, fairies, trees, even animal alters.
Animal alters form for the same reason as fictives. But leaning more towards feeling like you are not human. So if you're going through a trauma, going to put a trigger warning here because I'm going to be speaking about not details, but specific types of traumas that can happen to cause animal alters to form. For children who are being neglected, they may be kept in small spaces or cages that can form like a dog alter because they feel like they are being treated as one. If a child is going through some sort of physical abuse, then they may wish that they are something strong and powerful and large, like maybe a wolf or a tiger, something that can fight back. The main thing to remember is that DID is formed in a child's mind. And children are not. They don't have the same sense of logic as someone older, like an adult. They will latch onto things that they feel can protect them. They may wish that they could flee from the abuse. I've seen systems with bird alters who have formed to represent wanting to be able to fly away and just escape. Something like a dragon for fighting back. Just anything that a child feels can protect them and help them in that moment and bring them comfort and help them survive that situation it can form as an alter.
Giving yourself up.
That they have to literally create issues to become oppressed.
I don't like when people call people with DID privileged. Hello? And I don't like that people call people with DID privileged because of what they had to go through in order to form DID. We do have Discord, but it is for friends only, currently.
I don't care if this was supposed to be a genuine question. This is full of ignorance. First of all, I am not a dog. We have a non-human alter in our system. He is a...
Hi, Celine. I hope you're doing well.
child. No, please stop sexualizing our alters.
Making any mental illness into, a party trick, let's say, does nothing but harm actual people who have these disorders. Stop talking for people that actually suffer from this. Whether this disorder is gender dysphoria, DID, Tourette's, anxiety. Yes, people are even faking having Tourette's on TikTok these days. Young women are apparently even...
So she says not to speak for people with the disorder, but she herself does not have DID. So I don't think she should be saying to not speak for people with DID when she herself does not have DID.
And developing tics from watching people that have fake tics on TikTok.
The DID community is dominated by the same gender intersectionalist and anti-racist as well. One educator with legitimate DID was shamed off the internet for one of her alters had a Spanish accent and she was white. Another genuine case was shamed offline after she completed treatment after 11 years. She was deemed to have gone to conversion therapy and then accused of killing her alter.
Now, as somebody who actually has an anxiety disorder, I can tell you this is super harmful. Now, I'm all about destigmatizing mental health and encouraging people not to have stigmas against therapy and getting the treatment that they need. But when people start faking it for woke clout on TikTok, that is not just bad because it means they might end up in treatment that they don't need, but it's also an insult to people who are struggling with real mental health issues, and it actually belittles the entire cause of destigmatizing mental health in the eyes of the public when some of these people get exposed for.
So he says that he has an anxiety disorder, which is fine. I'm not saying that he doesn't. Not even close. But he cannot speak for other people who have DID if he himself does not have DID. He can only speak on what he has. People should not be speaking over the DID community when they do not have DID.
For faking it.
Oh my god, I forgot to tell you, they even created a new sexual orientation with all of this. It is called plurosexuality. It's when a system, which is somebody that has DID, is only attracted to other systems, somebody else that has DID. So now that we established how these people are creating these identities and self-diagnosing, let's talk about why they're doing this. Why do these kids like the idea of being mentally ill, of being trans, of being LGBT, of having anxiety? Because to be honest, the only mental illness I see here is narcissism. And if we're
NPD is very heavily stigmatized. And it is for reasons like that, where you are just throwing out the word narcissism, narcissist, terms like narc abuse, which does not exist, because you would not say bipolar abuse, you would not say BPD abuse, you just do not. You cannot tell if someone is faking just by looking at them. You cannot tell by a 15-second video. Unless you have studied and you are a doctor and you are that person's doctor that is treating them, you cannot tell. You cannot. I think I'm going to end the video there and just go on to this one.
Hey, are you there? Are you okay? Ooh, I forgot that was a trigger.
Recently, I came across a whole bunch of YouTubers outing TikTokers who have been faking certain illnesses and disorders such as Tourette syndrome and ADHD. Well, one of the ones that got me really interested was the fact that people were being accused of faking DID, which used to be called multiple personality disorder and is now called dissociative identity disorder.